I always say, but I'm going to say it again, young people's voices are always be taken as tokenistic and not directly embedded within policy making or decision making or governance. And I think it's a real shame. But being a young person, I think, is one of my greatest strengths because it makes people wake up and listen. And I think that's what we need more of.
Hi there, and welcome to the Grateful Podcast. This is a place where we chat with inspiring people who are driving sustainable change in their communities, in their food systems, and also in their own lives. And in this episode, I have a special treat for you because I have not just one, but two amazing guests on the show for us today. Yumna Hussain and Nabeeha Khan may both only be 17 years old, but they're showing up in a way that will give you hope. They are both part of an organisation that's called Bite Back 2030. It's based in the UK and it's a youth-led movement for change. They're really committed to making it a reality for young people that they can access healthy and nutritious food. Bite Back was actually launched by Jamie Oliver and it's chaired by the amazing Corinna Hawkes, who was on an earlier episode of the podcast if you want to learn more about her work. But what's really cool about Bite Back is that it is entirely youth-led. So these two amazing ladies that are on the show today are actually part of the youth board in Birmingham. So Yumna grew up in the UK and she's the chair of the Birmingham Youth Board of Bite Back. And she's also serving as a youth member of parliament in Birmingham. Nabeeha, our second guest, came to the UK from Pakistan, and she's also a member of the Birmingham Youth Board and shares with Yumna this really deep conviction that young people have the power to change the world. And all I can say is that from talking with them and watching what they do, they really prove that's absolutely the case. So Bite Back's a fascinating organisation. They run creative campaigns to really drive government action on getting healthy food to kids. So, for example, they run a campaign called Spill the Beans, trying to get youth to share more about the food that they're really being offered as a part of their school meals. They have a campaign called Don't Hide What's Inside, which is highlighting the fact that many food businesses are misleading consumers to label food as healthy that's actually far from the truth. And a campaign called Add Enough, which is all about ending junk food advertising in the UK. On their way to school, kids are just bombarded with ads for fast food, for hyperpalatable food, before they've even sat down for their first lesson. What I think makes this work so powerful is that it is by youth and for youth. And I really loved learning about the commitment and the efforts of Yumna and Nabeeha, but also just seeing how they respectfully collaborate with each other and hold space for each other was really a highlight of this conversation for me. I left it feeling super inspired. I'm sure you're going to as well. And to help get you ready for this conversation, I'm sharing a poem with you from Christina Adane, the youth co-chair of Bite Back, called Feed Britain Better, which will help you get a feeling for the topics that are close to the heart of everyone involved in Bite Back.
So what, we go Mackey's or chicken shop? The ultimate question amongst a group of friends going out. Ironic, because the two are variations of the same, both deep-fried junk, just under a different name. In a world full of choices, it seems we don't have many. Can't have nice food without spending a pretty penny. And that's the pretty price that many can't afford. We'd rather that 99p option on the billboard. Speaking of advertising, I really wonder why they use cartoons to catch my little sister's eye. Using kids to sell products, how can you justify sacrificing our health for your wealth? This has to be rectified. This isn't just one instance, it happens all over the scene. Young people's health is on the line, from London to Aberdeen. Whether it be supermarket shelves or school canteens, we deserve better. We cannot live by these means. It's about time the food industry put our well-being first. I don't want diabetes, obesity, or anything worse. It's frightening that junk food is our automatic reaction. When we're feeling hungry, this needs direct action. We're already worrying about racial justice and the Earth's condition. yet we still have to fight for a fairer food system.
You're both still in school, but you seem to dedicate a lot of time to this really important topic of campaigning for healthier food, particularly for youth. So perhaps each of you could just share how you realized you really care about this topic, and when was that moment when you decided I have to do something about it?
I've moved to different countries and I used to live in Pakistan. I used to see the food inequality was massive. And when I moved to UK as a asylum seeker, I had to stay in hostels, refugee hostels. I had to stay in homeless shelter. So when I looked at the quality of food and how the food was same every day, it was repetitive, it wasn't healthy, not fresh enough, and how people were struggling compared to the people who were well off. So I realized that it's actually a problem. At that time, I didn't know what I can do about it because I was new to the country. I was still really confused, quite puzzled about all of the problems going on around me. All I could do is just look at them and that's it, do nothing and feel sorry about myself and other people around me. But then in lockdown, I came across this organization, Bite Back. And when I looked at what they do and how they're using young people as a voice to change the world, I was like, that's exactly what I was looking for. That's the solution to my problem, everyone's problem. It's our voices and how we can raise our voice and campaign. So I joined Bite Back and it gave me that confidence and it gave me that knowledge to actually use my ideas and take an initiative about changing the world and changing the food system.
That's so amazing. What about you, Yumna?
Yeah, I would say, so I was always passionate about young people's voices because I truly believe that young people do have the potential and the skills and all the passion to change the world. So in Birmingham, I'm a youth MP for Birmingham, and that means that I speak to a lot of decision makers and policy makers and councillors and MPs to try and find out what are the specific issues that impact young people and how young people can utilize their own skills to make a difference and make an impact. And so I always saw food poverty as a massive, massive issue, and COVID obviously exacerbated a lot of the issues that young people were facing. And for me, I saw food as being one of the things that separates people who are well off and people from lower income backgrounds is the food. You can go to a school and everything can be the same. You have the same teachers, but it's the food that separates you on the table. From one school to another, you've got young people who have fresh, local food, who understand more about food than other young people. And then you've got young people who don't even understand the difference between certain vegetables and stuff like that because they aren't taught food education in schools. And food is such a massive, massive part of everyone's life. It's culture, it's heritage. It keeps you alive, it keeps you sustained. And so if you don't have fresh food, it puts you at a disadvantage. You can't focus in school. And I saw it in Birmingham. It's such a big issue. If you just look at poverty levels, it's more than 1 in 3 children in Birmingham are impacted by food insecurity. And that it's a massive, massive percentage of young people who don't have access to healthy food. And Birmingham is supposed to be the youngest city in Europe, where me and Nabeeha are both from Birmingham. So we're both from the youngest city in Europe, and yet our voices aren't really being heard, especially when it comes to the food system. So yeah, that's why I got involved with Bite Back 2030 as well. I think it's just an incredible organisation that impacts the lives of young people, is in giving them a voice and giving them a confidence, like Nabeeha said, but also trying to tackle some of those big issues within the food system, like junk food advertising, like looking at how we can make a more sustainable food system that takes into account the impacts that it has on both people and planet. So yeah, I think Bite Back's amazing.
So as I understand it, Jamie Oliver set up Bite Back, and it's primarily run by youth though. Could you explain a little bit more the purpose behind Bite Back and also how it works with this youth-led focus?
Yeah, Jamie co-founded the organisation, but it's, like you said, primarily led by young people, and he is a big supporter of what we do in our campaigns, and he tries his best to push it forward. And I think that's incredible, us actually as young people who are leading this movement and leading this change. So we've got 3 separate boards. We have a national youth board who sort of work on campaigns that are more national and that have a wider impact on maybe policies in the government. But also me and Nabeeha both sit in the Birmingham local board. You've got the London Youth Board and you have a Birmingham Youth Board, and this Birmingham Youth Board it's led by young women actually. So every person on our Birmingham youth board are women, so that's just incredible to have a women-only team. And then the London board is slightly bigger than ours, much bigger than ours actually, and it's got more than 20 young people. And I think that's how it's run, and we run campaigns more on the grassroots level, more locally. And Nabeeha, you can maybe explain a bit more about, the Birmingham board and one of the new campaigns that we're trying to set up.
Yes, we're currently working on this campaign to ban junk food advertisement in Birmingham. And we have seen on our way back from school, wherever we are going, on our routes, that there are junk food advertising like loads and loads, and which are kind of brainwashing us indirectly. We don't even know we're impacted by it, which lead us to end up buying junk food, right? So we decided to put an end to it and call out our MPs and write a letter to them and create a petition to finally solve this problem. But we're still working on it. We sent him a letter, but we haven't heard from him yet. So let's see how it turns out. So we're really trying hard on this campaign. We're still collecting signatures, trying to promote the campaign, sending it out to the young people. And lots of people agree with us that this is a problem.
Yeah, and just to expand on that, so our Bite Back 2030, its main goal. Some people might be thinking, what's the 2030 behind that? So the 2030 is basically trying to halve childhood obesity rates by 2030. And we have these three main aims. So healthy schools, healthy neighborhoods, and healthy streets. And so that's sort of our three pathways, and what sits underneath that, like I said, was the National Youth Board. You have your Birmingham local board and then the London one, but also we're looking to set up loads of new local boards around different cities in the UK this year and next year. So if there are young people listening to this, get in touch with Bite Back, because there are new local boards not just in Birmingham and London, but we're looking to expand, so that would be amazing. And like Nabeeha said, one of the campaigns that we're doing in Birmingham is trying to end junk food advertising on public transport, because young people take buses, trams and trains nearly every day to school. And so we're seeing all this junk food advertising, and we did a few weeks of going around the city, taking pictures, taking videos of these junk food ads that we are seeing, McDonald's, KFC, all these different big fast food companies, and they're subconsciously impacting and influencing what you buy for food. And I think, like Nabeeha said, it does have a big impact on whether you buy healthier food or don't. That's one of the new exciting campaigns that we're running.
That's amazing. I actually saw the video that you made with people ordering the chicken in the restaurant and how they were influenced to do that. And that was really striking to watch, just what an incredible impact it has. And I also remember the last time I was in the UK, just being overwhelmed by the amount of advertising. And not only that, if you went to buy a bus ticket, I noticed I was all of a sudden surrounded by all of this junk food at ridiculous prices. You could buy 3 chocolate bars for 99 pence. And it was just shocking to see that. And so many kids hanging around there after school or before school. It's wonderful you're doing something about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of young people hang around junk food shops, fast food shops in general, chicken shops. And so that's why I think for me, food such a big thing, because food is such a massive thing in, part of growing up in the community. They're sort of seen as safe spaces for people, especially when you take in the racial element to it as well. So I live in an area where the majority of people are from Black African backgrounds, like myself. So I feel like those sort of environments are more friendly for Black young boys, because that's, where they've grown up, and that's a very comfortable and safe environment for us at Bite Back, and just, as young people who are campaigning to make healthier food more accessible, is how can we create those safe spaces as well for young people where they can access healthier food and have free Wi-Fi and still hang out with their friends, so it doesn't create this cycle of just spending little, like you said, 99p. It can literally be the cheapest amount for junk food, but when it comes to healthier food, there's a lack of affordable options. So it's also creating that element of safe space and belonging for a lot of these young people.
The thing with junk food is that I've noticed these companies and these shops, restaurant owners, they're so clever. They've got these places near our schools on our way back to school. They're specifically targeting us, and they don't realize what the consequences of this are. It's impacting the whole nation, whole world. These restaurants, these fast food spaces, and these advertisements. And as Yumna said, Bite Back is such a powerful organization. Before joining Bite Back, I didn't even realize that I've been impacted by those junk food advertisements. And as you talked about that video of people ordering and looking at that crispy, fried, really nice, juicy chicken. If I look at it, obviously I would want to buy that because that's how they present it as. But when you go and buy it and when you keep on eating it, what it leads to the health problem, you don't realize about that. And that's what Bite Back is aware of. And the thing about Bite Back, I really like is the name Bite Back. I think the name stands out so much. It's such a unique name. And I told my friends that I've been part of the organization and the campaign Bite Back. They find it really funny as well, in a nice way, obviously. They were like, okay, Nabeeha, so you're biting back now. I was like, yeah, we all have to bite back now.
My friends say that to me all the time. My friend said that to me just yesterday. But yeah.
It's a great name. I love it too.
It's a really good way to rope young people into the campaign because they start asking questions like, what is it about? What's the new campaign that you're doing? So I feel like it gets young people interested and gets young people involved. And that's what we want, is to try and get more young people involved and included in this, because it's so much bigger than us.
I think it definitely gives us power as youth because we are the future. We are future voters. We are the people who would help out in everything. We are the future, basically. So we have to know, we have to use our voices from now on. And because adults, what are they doing? They're literally doing nothing. So we have to take over, technically. That's why I think the organizations such as Fight Back are quite important.
I wanted to ask you what you thought about that, because so many adults that I speak to, when I ask them what inspires them, when everything feels so overwhelming, they always say the youth of today and the action the youth are taking. I wonder how you feel about that when you hear that. What sort of comes up for you when people say that?
Yeah, there are two parts to this, because I feel like it's really easy for adults to be like, yes, we created all the issues in the world and we're sort of perpetuating it now, but we'll hand it over to young people because young people are the future. They've got the skills and they can change it. That's amazing. But sometimes I feel like our youth is sort of robbed off us from trying to campaign on issues that we ourselves haven't created, and we're being directly impacted by it. And sometimes that burden can be a bit too much for some young people. And that's definitely not wrong. It's like you feel like you've got all the world's troubles on you. And especially when things are so personal, like food insecurity or not having access to healthy food, or, just being brought up in an area where you don't feel safe. I think that it does have a lot of impact on young people. And so, yes, whilst I agree with Nabeeha saying that, adults, it's great that some of them are trying to give young people more of a hand and be like, yes, you are the future and you've got this. I think young people are leading change now, and that's the difference. It's like adults need to be there to support young people and not just be like handing everything over to us and be like, yep, we created the mess and now it's up to you guys to fix it because, yeah, you've got it all. And sometimes it just feels really ironic, the fact that young people, we're here to sort of fix up a mess that we haven't created. So I do think that organizations like Bite Back, you don't do this fake consultancy thing. You get a lot of organizations who talk about young people without talking to young people. And that's one of the things that I really dislike. It's like, even when it comes to education, food, or anything, young people are one of the main stakeholders in this. But yeah, we're not going to include them in the table because their views don't really matter as much. But I think one of my greatest strengths, and I always say this, is that young people have so much power. People listen up to you more as a young person. And like you said before, I think that some adults feel really inspired by young people and what they're doing. And I think it's really important, but young people do need that good support network around them so they can carry on and sustain the campaigning work that they're doing or whatever it is they want to do. So yeah.
Nabeeha, what about you? How do you feel when you hear that?
When I hear that, I think I need to influence other people like me, like people of my age group, to get more involved. But I've noticed one thing: when people say, oh, young people have voice, young people have power, they need to use it. But I think some people say just for the sake of it. For example, certain politicians, they say, oh, we're trying to get youth involved, we're trying to set up youth spaces and all of that. But they're not actually giving them the power. They're just pretending to give us the power. They have limited our choices, and still young people lack voices. Because lots of adults still are not supporting young people. We need adult support, and we need organizations like Bite Back to give us the voice and give us the right direction and purpose.
And I think that's what I really liked, at least from what I could see from the outside of Bite Back. It was like adults came in and said, okay, let's set up a platform, let's offer resources, and then let's get out of the way. And that's probably what you need more of. And it seems like they also offer you support in terms of offering professionals who can support your work, but aren't guiding your work, which seemed also like a really nice setup of the organization. Yeah,
definitely. It's very much advice, but it's literally giving young people a space. Like we feel very much heard. Everything that we say is taken into account, and even the internal structure. We have like difficult conversations, but it's so important. Like we're always being listened to, we're always being heard. Nothing ever feels like a tick box. The young people staff relationship seems so well, cultivated. Like everything is very well thought of, and it's just such a nice atmosphere to be in with young people who are around the same age as you, and you're sort of in this like campaigning journey together, but also staff who are willing to understand you and always there to listen to you and just take on board what you're saying in everything that they're doing.
Yeah, being in Bite Back is like surrounded by all of like-minded people. Everyone is there to work for the cause.
And have fun as well. Like, campaigning doesn't need to be boring, and that's what I like about Bite Back. I think there's always a fun twist to things. So yeah, that's what I like.
I really think joy is the fuel for our purposeful work in the world. So that's nice to hear. And I can see it in how you interact with each other. It's really nice to see how you clearly have fun with each other. You make space for each other. So what are the most important things you've learned from either one another here or from the broader youth who work with you on the Birmingham Youth Board? What are some of the most important things you've learned from each other?
I would say the importance of listening to people's stories and actually combining your lived experience as well as like the research that we do as well to actually make differences. One of the things that I would say I've learned from everyone in Bite Back is just the way like if Nikki's listening to this, Nikki helps with framing and the way we put out Bite Back messages, and she's gonna be really happy when she hears this. But I just love framing, so it's like framing the message that we want to tell people about Bite Back and our story and why we do things the way we do. And I think one of the things that I've learned is the power of storytelling. So I'm a poet, so I love writing poetry and writing in general. So storytelling and communicating and speaking to different people and hearing their stories just makes me really, really happy. So I think one of the things that I've loved about Bite Back is just it's been able to give me more of also just awareness about how important storytelling is in terms of campaigning and just putting the message out there to people, because the way you tell a message can either make someone go further away from the cause or bring them much closer. So I would say definitely the way you tell the message in storytelling in general is one thing that I've really learned, and just I'm hoping to even take that further and find more ways that we can be more creative in our campaigning.
I would say the importance of inclusivity and diversity, because in our organization, everyone is coming from all walks of life. It's so diverse, so good. I feel like I'm living in actual world with all different kinds of people, all coming together. We can relate to each other. And as Yumna said, storytelling. So we can definitely relate to each other, learn from each other, be part of each other's journey, support one another to work for our cause. So it's quite amazing. And as Yumna also mentioned, framing. I didn't even know about framing before going back.
I didn't.
No, there's something as framing and how powerful it can be to make your voices be heard.
And you see that in the material and the way your campaigns are delivered too. They're very, very effective in getting attention and in helping one understand a complex topic really quickly.
Yeah, and I think it just makes people relate to your message even more. And like you said, it simplifies it in a way that is still kind of detailed but brings people closer in as well. So you're presenting it in a really concise way that still kind of draws people's attention in. And I think one of the things that I've really liked is just people being like, oh, I got where you're coming from. Even if someone's not able to understand like your particular struggle, they're still able to see, okay, what part can I play in that? And they can, you can take them on that journey with you. And I think that's something that's really special.
Yeah, I think particularly around the topic you mentioned before, one of the campaigns is around banning junk food advertising, but other parts of your work are around the other side of that, which is, well, how do we get people access to healthy food? And a lot of people don't necessarily understand what it means to not be able to access healthy food as a young person. What would you wish they knew about that lived experience to help them realize how important it is, if it's something they haven't experienced themselves?
Yeah, I would say just food is just a big part of everyone's life. So if you don't have access to healthy food as a young person, just speaking from a young person's perspective, how can you expect it to concentrate in school, or how you expect it to just live just on a day-to-day basis without access to healthy food. And there's just so many different things within the food system that need changing, like just trying to lessen down on, you know, the food waste. There's so much food waste everywhere, wherever you are. I was reading something like a few weeks ago, and it was saying how all the food waste in a year can total up to 11 meals to feed somebody who doesn't have food. And you can imagine 11 meals a day. Some people don't have 3 meals a day. I think in England, it's such a big issue. Like, food insecurity is such a massive issue that there's an over-reliance on food banks now, and we saw it in the pandemic. I think when you think about certain things like over-reliance on food banks, you see the food delivery apps, Deliveroo, Uber Eats. There's such an over-reliance on all this stuff, and I think people nowadays just want things that are convenient for them and things that are cheap. And junk food hits those boxes straight off. So I think it's such a big issue, and I think it definitely needs to be looked at within our education system as well. We're not really taught much about food except the red, orange and yellow labelings that you have. Like, we don't really know about nutritional labelings. We're not really taught on, you know, how to cook food, how to grow food, how food plays a bigger part in the ecosystem, how important it is to your health. There's so many different things. Like, I was I went to a primary school on the outskirts of Birmingham, and so the young people grow their own food, they cook their own food, they make their own food, and these are primary school children who aren't older than the age of 11. And it's directly embedded within their curriculum, so they teach their young people about the process of food, from growing to production to packaging to actually having it on your plate. I was speaking to teachers, and I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. It's brought the students and the staff closer together. You know, when you're eating together with other people, it's that sense of community, it's that sense of respect that you have for each other. There's so many different things, and I think that people don't really register all of that when they think about food. They just think, yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm just eating something and I'm leaving, but it's literally such a big part of our lives, and we don't really think about it. And I think, yeah, that's just a few of the things that are wrong with our food system now. But I think one of the big things that we need to do is try and give people from all different parts of the food system a voice, and try and build stronger, you know, alliances with people within the food system, such as farmers, growers, young people, rather than just big businesses hogging the spotlight. We need to put a healthier spotlight on healthier food, on young people's voices, to create a better impact in our food systems.
Can I add on to what you said? I said that it's cheap and it's easy to get. I think people are so used to eating junk food that they find it always more delicious compared to the healthy food. So they've got used to that taste because so much of that is available, so much of that is given to them. And there are lots of junk food advertisement. Well, why can't we have healthy food advertisement? Like, if you want to invest, why can't we invest in something which is useful? And I think people need to eat together, socialize. But the thing is, we don't have enough healthy food spaces where people can get together and socialize. All you can see is high streets of UK flooded with junk foods, flooded with chicken shop, chip shop, and all of that stuff. So then where would young people go? You're not giving them a way out, so they can't have a way out. They will still be trapped inside of that junk food and all those unhealthy options. And as you said, relating to your question, I think it all comes down to awareness and education. People who haven't have those lived experiences, they don't know, right? But I think is there's not enough awareness, there's not enough education for people to know what's happening around them. So I think school plays a big role in that. But the thing is, the school even doesn't have healthy food options. So where would young people go? There's literally no way out. And that's what we're trying to do as Fight Back.
Okay, so I am totally buying everything you both say, and I would immediately make changes if I was in your local government, but I'm not, unfortunately. So let's imagine that you have 2 minutes with your local representative. What would you tell them?
I would definitely tell them that I am a young people living in Birmingham, and I'm representing the voices of all the young people in Birmingham, how we are impacted by junk food, how we have no healthy food options, how we are indirectly being brainwashed, tempted to go out and buy junk food, how our healths are impacted. And we need your help and support to put an end to it, but you're not listening to us. You're too busy listening to all other people, all other issues rather than which is impacting us. That's all I'll talk to them about. And I might throw some statistics and data to be more convincing.
With a cherry on the top.
Yeah.
What about you, Yumna?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely talk about how our government needs to do more to make sure that young people's voices and their concerns are not being taken as tick boxes, but our voices are directly embedded within decision making. And, you know, we aren't necessarily asking for seats at the table any longer. We're building our own tables, we're building our own chairs, and we're making spaces where young people's voices truly matter. And so that's what I would say. And yeah, I would definitely be talking about how we really only have two options. We can either go down this path of further destruction of the planet and exploitation of people when it comes to the food system, or we can actually choose to recognize the urgency of this food crisis right now, where you have childhood obesity rates on the rise, but also malnutrition in one of the 6th richest economies in the world, what we love to brag about. There are people who don't have access to healthy food, and it's impacting their lives on a detrimental level. We can either choose to recognize this, and we can build these powerful alliances in this movement for food justice that goes beyond borders, that goes beyond ages, that goes beyond race, and everything else, and that gives people the agency and has equity at its heart. But yeah, I think it's really important for decision makers to listen to the voices of people in general, but particularly young people, because young people have some powerful stories to tell. Like, you know, Nabeeha, her story is just incredible, and I think it's one thing to actually recognize what you're going through at the time, but it's another thing to be like, yeah, it's impacting me, but now I want to do something different and actually make a difference in the lives of other young people. So yeah, I think that's really commendable.
So you mentioned something before, which I think is really important. That's how overwhelming this burden can feel, particularly on young people, of all these big challenges that you're trying to tackle in your spare time while you're also at school. That's an enormous burden. What have you learned about how to navigate that and how to look after yourselves in that process?
I think sometimes there can be a breaking point, but it all comes down to your mindset and your motivation and that burning desire to change the world and make an impact. So if you really want to do something, I believe, you know, it's going to sound a bit cliche, but where there's a will, there's a way. So if there's a will to do something, I think you can fit into your day and you can definitely have a balance. It all comes down to work-life balance as well. Obviously, it's hard, so you have to have a schedule. I always have a to-do list. Even though I'm not the most organized person on the planet, I still procrastinate a lot as well, but I end up doing things at the end of the day. So it all comes down to trying. You don't have to do it, like you don't have to fully accomplish your goal, but what matters for me is trying. At least it's better to do something than not doing anything at all. So I always try to do things, have a balance, deciding what to do when. So trying to fit it all in my day. And if I feel like losing motivation, if I feel like I'm too tired, then I have to remind myself, like, what I'm doing this for, who am I doing this for? Think of a bigger picture, I would say.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that. And it's really, really difficult. A lot of people are like, how do you balance it? How are you able to? And I'm like, sometimes I don't balance it. And it's actually okay to admit that. Yeah, sometimes I will spend more on things that I do outside of school, like campaigning for food justice, because for me, it's a really big thing. And I understand, you know, the impact that I can have on this issue. So the bottom line is that every person has the right to access healthy food, no matter how old you are, no matter your background. And so for me, that is the one thing that drives me. And you don't need to be this sort of perfect activist. Like Nabeeha said, doing one thing is better than doing nothing. It's important to just understand where you're at and not put too much pressure on yourself, because the world is already, you know, big and there's so many different issues, and it's easy to sort of feel overwhelmed, especially as a young person. But I would say it's really important, and this is advice to myself, is the importance of rest when it comes to activism. And I actually wrote a piece on this a couple of weeks ago about the importance of rest in activism. It's really, really important, because you can't continue fighting for change if your cup is empty. And rest is such a natural reaction to tiredness and lack of energy and feeling so overworked. And the culture that we live in now in society, it's so hyper-capitalist. We want to keep pushing for success, whatever that means, whatever campaign that we're doing. We're like, yes, we want to win it. And it's really important that we do. But success is relative, and activists and advocates, whatever you want to call it, we seem to translate this notion into social movements that we're leading or we're a part of. And sometimes you place so much pressure on yourself to keep moving, to keep striving, even at the extent of your mental and physical health. And we lose ourselves and we lose our connection to others. And it's difficult to then keep pushing with this feeling of detachment that you feel and being overworked. And being overworked is like seen as a badge of honor, pride, when it really shouldn't be. So yeah, I would definitely say that we can thrive if we give ourselves the space to rest, and we need to practice it consistently, because it is such a radical tool for community healing and just being able to sustain the work that we're doing. We need to reframe our bodies sites of rest. And I can go on about this for so long, because I've recognized that when I do rest more and I take a step back, it's had such a bigger impact in terms of the energy that I can bring to a campaign and what I'm putting into myself, what I'm releasing out. So yeah, I would say it's such a big part, and this is definitely a message for me as well. So yeah,
we often become very passionate about the topics we need to learn ourselves. So that's what I'm passionate about for the same reason. Yeah.
As Yumna said about success is relative, I think what sometimes most young people, they end up comparing themselves with other people. And I think subject is quite subjective and perceptive as well, because everyone is living different life based on different circumstances. So everyone has a different timeline, and everyone's definition of success is different. So if you compare your success, like for what you're doing should be enough for you, but it might not be enough for some other people. So if you keep comparing, because everyone has got different capability, different goals. So if you end up comparing yourself, obviously you're going to put a pressure on your mental health. So sometimes you end up losing yourself. So I think we should be really careful and be self-aware of our thoughts, that we're not comparing, we're definitely taking rest.
Then I have a last question for you. I ask all the guests on the podcast this question. The podcast is called The Great Full. What does living a great and full life mean for you?
I'm very passionate about life. When people ask me, what are you passionate about? I wouldn't say I'm just passionate about one thing. All of these things are going to sound very cheesy, but I think these lines actually hold the real meaning of life. I think everyone should live life to their fullest, giving 100% and having no regrets, no grudges. So I would say I live my life. I believe in the attitude of gratitude. So even if you're not getting what you want, but as long as you're trying, you should be grateful and live your life. Because if you keep on striving for more and more in terms of, for example, wealth, you would never be happy. The true happiness comes from mindset, from your perception of life, perception of reality, and just being grateful for what you have rather than striving for more. Just making use of the opportunities already available to you and giving your 100% and living your life.
Yeah, I don't even think I need to add much to that. Like, she just said it all. Like, that is for me what life is about, and just staying true to myself and trying to be confident in myself, not really compromising on my beliefs and my value system, my core values. And I am really strong on my faith, so just making sure that I trust in God and trusting in myself and the people that I'm close to, and my family, my friends, and just prioritizing the message and the aim, and never feeling like what I'm doing is not enough. I feel like a lot of us feel that sense of, oh, I'm not doing enough. You know, we're speaking about things that impact our lives and the lives of so many like communities around us and the communities that we're part of. So yeah, sometimes it does feel really heavy. But like Nabeeha said, I love learning, I love life, I love taking in experiences, and every day just trying to be a better person. And yeah, no one's really made change if they've tried to blend in with other people. And I think it's just so important that for us, we just try and, like Nabeeha said, try always find the one good thing, one positive thing in every day. Like, at least you found that one thing in that day that, you know, that's made you positive, that's put a smile on your face. And I would say, like, in any campaigning work that you're doing, in any sort of social movement or anything, joy, optimism, being content is the thing that makes it keep going. It's the hope that we're living for a better tomorrow. And I think that is the one thing that I think, if there was anything that anyone could take away from this, it's just that feeling of love, of agency, of optimism, of hope and joy, because that is the one thing that keeps us going, and it's the one thing that, you know, that we're striving for a better tomorrow. So yeah.
Wow, ladies, aren't you two amazing? That was such a beautiful conversation. Thank you. And at the end, I feel like I want you to be the Mayor of West Midlands now, or even better, the Prime Minister right now. And I think we would be able to tackle a lot of the big issues that we're seeing. So that was just, so inspiring to hear your stories and your passion and the energy that you're bringing to this really important work. So thank you both so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Grateful Podcast. If you liked it, then please go ahead and subscribe and share it with a friend. And I would love to get your questions answered here. So if there's something that you would like answered or explored on this podcast, just send me an email to podcast@thegrateful.com and I'll do my very best to get your questions answered here on the show. Music in this episode came from Blue Dot Sessions.